With a mind map on mastication, salivary secretions, functions, and phases, we'll look at the masticatory system, the purpose of mastication, structures and functions, and the salivary glands, saliva, functions of saliva, and control of salivary secretion. So let's try and recall what we know about these. So with the masticatory system, the organs and structures primarily functioning in mastication, of course, the jaws, jaw muscles, teeth, the temporal mandibular joints, tongue, lips, cheeks, and numerous membranes. With mastication, chewing is the first step in digestion, breaking up large pieces of food to increase the surface area and then mixing it up with saliva and exposing the food material to enzymes is part of mastication too. And this leads to the formation of bolus to aid in swallowing. And mastication is primarily an unconscious semi autonomic act but can be mediated by higher conscious input. And well, is it a learned behavior? It's actually a motor program of mastication, yeah, of swallowing and other processes I talked about, and it's thought that a feedback from proprioceptive nerves in the teeth and temporomandibular joints govern the creation of neural pathways, which in turn determine the duration and force of individual muscle activation. And this motor program consciously adapts to changes in food type or occlusion, and this adaptation is a learned skill that may sometimes require relearning to adapt to loss of teeth or to dental treatments that involve appliances such as dentures. So, still, movement when it comes to mastication occurs around three axes: the horizontal axis, vertical, and the sagittal. The natodiciometer is a tool to record the position of the mandible in persons with natural teeth. And when we talk about the muscles of mastication, they are the temporalis, masseter. These are superficially placed and palpable. And also, deeper, you have the lateral pterygoid, the medial pterygoid muscles in the infratemporal fossa and the buccinatus to the cue food in the position during chewing. So if there's any facial deviation, that could also affect um, mastication, and is innervated by the mandibular branch of the trigeminal nerve. So the muscles of mastication are involved in masticatory and non-masticatory movements too. So well, embryonically, as in embryology, the muscles of mastication develop first from the first pharyngeal arch, and they are innervated by the branch of the trigeminal nerve. That's the mandibular branch of the trigeminal nerve, and of course, like I said, the neuromuscular controlling of chewing is being done by this. It's mastication is also a sensory motor activity aimed in the preparation of food for swallowing, and these activities result in patterns of rhythmic mandibular movements, food manipulation, and the crushing of food between the teeth. Characteristics of the food, actually, example, let's take water and fat percentage and the hardness. So these are known to influence the masticatory process, and the food hardness is sensed during the mastication and affects the masticatory force, and also the jaw muscle activity and the mandibular jaw movements too. And the characteristic breakage behavior of food is essential for the sensory sensation. Okay, so saliva actually is an enzyme containing secretion of the salivary glands, and a total of about 1000 to 1500 ml of saliva um, is secreted daily. And the major salivary glands, which produce about 90% of saliva, are the parotid glands, the submandibular, and the sublingual glands. The minor salivary glands produces about 10% and is scattered in the submucosa of the oral cavity. So a quick histology. No, the acynus, that is where there's a production of saliva. It goes into the intercalated disc, and that joins the intralobular disc, and then it joins into the main salivary duct in the salivary gland. So you have several acina joined together forms the lobe, which is the secretory unit consisting of the acina and the intercalated disc, and all these join to the intralobular duct into the main duct too. So the main salivary glands are compound exocrine glands, and the exocrine glands contain a glandular portion and a duct portion. So the duct portion may be branched. That's what we call the compound or unbranched, which is what we call simple. And the glandular portion may be tubular or acina, or maybe a mix of the two. That is the tubulo-acina. And a functional unit, that is an acinus and an intercalated duct. That's what we call the lobe. So the acinus cell secretes a protein-rich fluid called the primary secretion. And the primary secretion, of course, are the alpha amylase, mucin, and proline-rich proteins. And the ductal epithelial cells modify the primary secretion. So with the composition of saliva, the primary secretions of salivary acina cell atresis plasma-like, and the modification occurs in salivary ducts. Sodium and chloride are absorbed, whilst potassium and bicarbonate are secreted. And at higher flow rates, the composition of the final secretory product is more like the primary secretion. The human saliva is always hypotonic, and salivary potassium is always greater than the plasma potassium. It's alkaline too. The saliva and regulation of these salivary secretions and composition, or is based on the on specific contents like the glycoprotein content of the final secretory product has specific contents, whether serous or seromucous or just mucus. For example, the parotid gland produces serous fluid, the sublingual, submandibular seromucous, and the mucus for the minor salivary glands too. Serous secretions have high alpha amylase, and the mucus secretions have high mucin. And the mucus, of course, the goblet cells and some acina cells in the salivary glands secrete mucins, which are high molecular weight glycoproteins, and the mucins are hydrated to form mucus. And with the mucus has several functions like lubrication, hydration, mechanical protection of the surface epithelial cells, and immunological role by binding to pathogens and accelerating or interacting with the immune competent cells. With the major organic components of mammalian saliva, that the components like the protein-rich proteins, Normally, cell types like the acinar produces a in the glands, the parotid gland and some mandibular glands produce this protein-rich and proline-rich proteins, and the possible function is in enamel formation, calcium binding, antimicrobial activities, and lubrication. That's for the proline-rich proteins, with the cell type being acinar and the glands being parotid and submandibular glands. Mucin glycoproteins are being produced by the sublingual and the submandibular glands, and also the cell type is acinar and it's basically for lubrication, and with the enzymes alpha amylase being produced by the parotid and submandibular. The cell type is acinar. It's for starch digestion, and with lipase also acinar produced by the sublingual, and that is for fat digestion. For ribonuclease, the cell type is actually ductile, not acinar, and the glands, submandibular glands, is what produce the ribonuclease, and it's for RNA digestion. And also for an enzyme like kallikrein, that one, the cell type is ductile and it's produced by parotid, submandibular, sublingual glands, and the possible function is actually unknown. And the same for growth factors. It's also duct cell type, but the gland that produce these growth factors are the submandibular, and the possible factors or functions are broad and quite unknown. And other enzymes that I can think of, lactoperoxidase, acinar, produced by the submandibular gland, is for antimicrobial activities. Lactoferrin 2 acinar cell type, actually unknown, probably the minor salivary gland, and it's also having an antimicrobial activity. And for lysozyme 2, cell type is duct, also submandibular gland, and it's also having antimicrobial activities for IgA receptor secretion, IgA secretory Ps. They're all ductile, and the specific salivary gland is unknown, but they all have antimicrobial activities. Alright, so with the other components of saliva, like I said, the proline-rich proteins have antimicrobial and protective properties, and also for lubrication. There are lipase, nucleases, lysozyme, peroxidases, lactoferrin, secretory, immunoglobulin A, growth factors, regulatory peptides, vasoactive proteases, for example, like the renin, and that's renin, not the renin, and the kallikrein, and also inorganic compounds, sodium chloride, calcium carbonate, and like I said, the functions of saliva are very diverse. For digestion, for example, salivary amylase, and protection of the oral cavity, that is oral hygiene, prevention of hydration of oral mucosa, IgA and lysozyme, lubrication for mastication and swallowing, neutralization of any gastric secretions that reflux into the esophagus, and also facilitation of taste and smell functions, that is solvent action, and excretory function, that is many substances, organic and inorganic, are secreted in the saliva. For example, in diabetes mellitus, glucose is secreted, and in nephritis, urea is secreted in the saliva. With the effect of the rate of secretion on the composition of saliva, realize that when you take a component like sodium, in unstimulated or basal states, you have 15 millimoles, but in the stimulated states, like cholinergic agonist, you have 90 millimoles, and with potassium 30 for unstimulated or basal states, and with the stimulated states 15, and um, chloride 15 for unstimulated or basal states, and for stimulated states 50. With the total carbon dioxide is 15 for the unstimulated or basal state, and 60 for the stimulated state. So you can see you have the higher amount of potassium, that's 13 millimoles in the unstimulated or basal state, and you have the highest being sodium in the stimulated state. Alright, so the agonist of salivary sinus secretions mostly controlled by the autonomic nervous system, and the major agonists are acetylcholine and norepinephrine. They are released from the postganglionic parasympathetic and sympathetic nerve terminals, respectively. So with the cholinergic receptor is a muscarinic xylem-3 glandular subtype that has been involved over here, in adrenergic receptors, both the alpha and beta subtypes. Well, both the cholinergic and adrenergic neurotransmitters can stimulate exocytosis of the salivary sinus cells, and stimulation of the protein secretion is mediated by both cyclic AMP and calcium, and the stimulation of fluid and electrolyte secretion largely mediated by cholinergic and alpha adrenergic stimulation mediated by calcium. So with the pathways, autonomic control of salivary secretion, we have the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. With the parasympathetic, like I said, acetylcholine and substance B are the neurotransmitters, so receptors being muscarinic. Let's take acetylcholine, so muscarinic receptor, so M3. And the signaling pathway is through calcium, and with that, the cellular response fluid is more than protein secretion. And still on the parasympathetic neurotransmitter like substance P, the receptor being tachykinin, that's NK1, and the pathway being calcium, and the fluid, the cellular response, the fluid secretion is more than the protein secretion. But when it comes to the sympathetic, the neurotransmitter is norepinephrine. But let's deal with the alpha adrenergic and the beta adrenergic. For alpha adrenergic, the signaling pathway is through calcium, and the fluid is more than the protein secretion. But the beta adrenergic, the signaling pathway is through the cyclic AMP, and the protein content is more than the fluid secretion, and that makes the mouth dry. So hormonal regulation of saliva due to the effect of aldosterone, and it stimulates the absorption of sodium chloride and the secretion of potassium, and the neuronal regulation of exocrine secretion. They are both central and reflex pathways involved, and the postganglionic sympathetic and parasympathetic fibers contribute to autonomic regulation of secretion, and the autonomic nerves also carry afferent pain fibers. The vasculature carries nutrients and oxygen and hormones. The acinus cells, duct cells, and the goblet cells are also being involved over here. And the superior salivary or salivatory nucleus is the submandibular in the submandibular ganglion. It leads to the submandibular ganglion, and then the postganglionic fibers supply the submandibular and the sublingual glands. Then that's the same for the parotid gland, where the inferior salivatory nucleus to the octic ganglion and postganglionic fibers supply the parotid glands, with the inferior salivatory nucleus dealing with that's with the parotid gland pathway. And with the parasympathetic, the secretion is stimulated primarily by the input, the parasympathetic input through acetylcholine, and the parasympathetic innervation originates in the salivary nuclei of the brainstem. The sympathetic, the postganglionic fibers from the superior cervical ganglia travel along the blood vessels to the salivary gland. It's like hitchhiking. And the sympathetic stimulation causes vasoconstriction of the vessels, and the sympathetic system is the primary stimulator of the myeloepithelial cells. But the secretion of viscous saliva um, occurs with higher solid content. That is what the sympathetic stimulation. The brainstem is the only part of the central nervous system that is essential. That's the most essential for mastication. Alright, so just a quick one. The salivary gland has two distinct acinar cell populations, those that secrete a serous product and those that secrete a mucus product. And the regulators of salivary secretion are the cholinergic and adrenergic neural pathways, and they both stimulate salivary enzymes, or leads to salivary exocytosis. Alright, so that's just a quick review of mastication, salivary secretion, functions, and the phases. So the neurotransmitters, like I talked about, of the autonomic nervous system, acetylcholine, or parasympathetic nervous system, the sympathetic being the epinephrine. Alright, so we'll talk about the glutation probably in the subsequent mind maps.